We want to start off with a reminder that we are not doctors. Before you make any changes or try something new, always consult with your doctor and medical team first. Chronic illness can vary from patient to patient, so it's always best to consult with your own doctor for what is best for you.
Hello and welcome to IBD Determined. I'm your host, Mason Harvey, and I speak from the role of a patient and I have Crohn's disease.
And I'm Michelle Harvey. I'm Mason's mom, and I speak in the role of a caregiver. And today's podcast is going to talk about something that the surgeons covered. We had IBD Day at Rady's
IBD
last
Day.
weekend. Yeah, we did this last year. Actually covered everything last year. So if you go back to I think it was season 2, and we covered all the different topics that all the doctors talked about. And actually something cool this year, we had integrative medicine, and she was brought into this year's meeting to speak. And it was interesting because we have never had an integrative
Wow.
medicine doctor
So
before.
that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure of her
do
title. It was Dr.
class,
Yu, I know
yeah.
that. Yeah, and so that was pretty cool. And so a new nutritionist that is also a doctor that is going to be in charge of doing intestinal ultrasounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just did a whole podcast on
Mhm.
that. And I think you guys can go back, check it out. I'll try to pop it up here on the screen for you guys. But Rady Children's Hospital is going to be getting the
An
intestinal ultrasound.
ultrasound. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
So that was
good news.
very
We
exciting
didn't.
news.
I didn't think that'd be on their radar yet, but
Yeah, we were
they're
hoping.
already.
So Mason got to ask that question. I think that everybody was very excited to hear the answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was
cool.
yeah.
The crazy thing is that we did this like a year ago. We recorded a video talking about Rady's Day last year, but I remember doing it and it doesn't feel like a year ago, which is
I know
scary.
it is. I was just thinking like that was a couple of months ago. It's like no,
College and school really makes time fly by, doesn't
Mhm.
it?
It does. That's how life gets.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's more than halfway done with the school year. So
Yeah, the school year, yeah, it's good. The
yeah.
school year.
So that's a good thing.
Hmm.
And so today what we're going to talk about is something the surgeons covered about research areas. And I hope that you guys will stay tuned. I know this might be a little boring. Even Mason was like, he was not a part of this planning for this episode.
Yeah.
He has been doing a lot of work trying to catch up on
Computer science.
yeah, his computer science course and design today.
Very busy.
Yeah, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and prep this. So since he didn't have any input, I picked the most boring topics I could find. So,
Wow, you pick all the rejects,
no,
didn't you?
yay! It's okay.
Well.
So it's not like boring, but I hope it doesn't lose your
Oh my
interest. I
God.
guess.
I know what we should do. We should make this podcast. We should make it a loop for 10 hours. You know, it's one of those
No,
10 hours
I would not do that to anybody.
podcasts. So
Yeah,
it helps them sleep.
you can use this in sleep studies.
Yeah, this just helps them fall asleep within seconds.
Yep.
Uh,
So hopefully you guys will actually learn something from this. I know I did in researching it, and we're going to have the links for you guys as well because I think those are going to be very helpful. And because there's a lot of heavy information here, you want to maybe read yourself and take some time to do that. But what we're going to be talking about, and this might be an exciting topic, they were talking about stem cell injections and also GLP2 peptides. And so I couldn't find, when they said stem cell injections, and I wish I had, more notes on this, and I don't. I'm not sure if the research is being done for something that is going to revolutionize how stem cells can be transplanted, or if it's just in relation to the work that they've been doing currently in regards to treating IBD with stem cell transplants. So, yeah, so I want to talk about stem cell transplants today a little bit and the GLP2 peptides that they mentioned. And so what we're going to talk about with stem cell, I specifically, there's a lot of articles on it. The one I like the most came from Mount Sinai. It's, almost a couple years old, this article, but they are still doing research into this, which is what our surgeons said. And so I wanted to look at a reliable source, and Mount Sinai has some great doctors. They are great and well known in the IBD community. So are you ready for the
Sleep experience #1 starting.
Well, stem cells might be something in your future, so important to
I'm
listen.
not a scientist.
Yeah, so Mount Sinai was doing clinical studies on stem cell transplants in regards to treating Crohn's disease. And it's actually known as an autologous stem cell transplantation.
Mhm.
And what they do is they use these as the people that qualified for this study had to be people who hadn't had other treatments hadn't worked. Like we're talking people who'd been through
All of it, like
yeah, a lot of different
Remicade,
things. Yeah, and just they
surgeries.
never really got well. And so
Mhm.
they had certain specifics. People had to qualify to do this. And what was interesting is that their findings showed autologous stem cell transplants benefit about 90% of Crohn's disease
Wow.
patients. And those were the ones who fit like that specific criteria that things were
And
not
so those
working
were
for
the ones
them.
that weren't working.
Yeah,
Wow.
and th
90%
they
then.
compared that to around 15% who benefited from new drugs when they were introduced. So
Hmm.
much higher percentage responded. And so that's kind of interesting. And so I was like, wow, this is, I had never researched the stem cell process. So we're going to talk about that. So
Okay,
yeah.
we're going to learn about
I,
it
I
today.
really I really didn't know much about it. And again, this is from Mount Sinai. There may be other studies, other ways to do this. There may be, something newer that is being researched, but this is just I thought this was the most helpful article.
Just remember, we're
So
not scientists. We research and we tell you the research that we've found.
And so one of the things that was interesting is it said when the disease returns, and I was like, wait, hold up.
Oh.
When the disease returns. And so I'm like, I had thought I know there's no cure,
Hmm.
but I had thought, with the stem cell transplant, I had thought this research might be something like stronger than a biologic, stronger, that
Than a
would.
cure.
And so when I heard, as soon as they said when the disease returns, I'm going, okay, so
Okay.
it just puts you into a form of remission.
Remission, like a better form of
Right.
remission.
So what they did say, this is where it gets interesting. When the disease returns, it seems to be in a different form,
Hmm.
one that is more treatable.
Hmm.
So you maybe before you were not able to be treated by something, but after you
You're
are.
able. Okay, that's interesting.
So patients suddenly became more responsive to treatments, and they're conducting studies to find out why. Like, why is that happening? Because the whole idea is like a immune system reset, and so you're trying to turn it back to before your immune system, and to quote them, they said went wild. So
Where your immune
that is
system
what they
went
said.
wild.
Yeah, before it malfunctioned and went wild.
Before it just
And so
glitched.
that's what the transplant is supposed
Hmm.
to do is kind of is take you back to
And
that.
and so you're probably gonna get to it, but is it like a surgery?
So that's what I had wanted because the surgeons had mentioned this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, so
And so I
that makes
had thought,
sense.
oh, this must be like transplant. Okay, so what is this? What kind of? So I don't think it's really considered like a surgery so
Hmm.
much as a treatment, but
Interesting.
much more than a biologic. But yeah,
Okay.
but they did call it like it's interesting because this fell into the surgery topic. And I think this is because one of the things surgeons are trying to do is avoid surgeries, and biologics are helping that happen.
Hmm.
And they're trying, which is funny, surgeons are trying to help you avoid them. They like to get
Yeah,
paid too. but
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 they're trying to
the
help.
idea is to have, with these surgeries for Crohn's, we know they don't cure.
Because
So,
with a surgery or taking out whatever part that's that has the Crohn's in it,
right, the inflammation
and
or
you take it
the,
out, it's going to come
yeah,
back, and you can only remove so much. It's not infinitely generating.
right,
So a surgery is, it's not like the surgeons are like, okay, well, we want you to always get a surgery. We want you
right.
to treat with a surgery. You have
Mhm.
to get both.
Right. So
They're
maybe
trying to save
less
you.
surgeries that will help instead
Mhm.
of just continually taking
Mhm.
out
Just putting
intestine
a
that you need.
band-aid on something that is not going to help.
Mhm. So I think it's kind of like works in tandem. Like these will also help like biologics do. This is something that might help
Mhm.
prolong it. If you do get a surgery, you still need to maintain like you don't.
You can't just come off
Right.
biologics.
But anyways, so one of the beneficiaries, one of the people that volunteered for this treatment, she was a 36-year-old who
Hmm.
had previously, for 10 years, gone through surgeries,
Wow.
biologics, steroids, and a colostomy with no long-term relief. So, like, she'd do better for a little bit of
And
time,
then
and then
she'd go
the
back
Crohn's,
to
yeah.
being normal.
So it
Well,
was
not
hard for her.
normal, but back to symptomatic.
Right. And so this
Hmm.
is where I never really thought of how these were done. You were just asking if it's like a surgery, but like, yeah, I had
Hmm.
never really thought about it either. So according to the article,
Hmm.
here's how it works.
Okay.
They require about nearly 6 weeks of hospitalization.
So about 2 months.
Yeah, and so like this person, I think the way they did it, they divided it up. So they did like the first 3 weeks, and they came back and did the second three
Oh, you
weeks.
can do them at different times, not
So
all at
they
once.
could they were able to. So I would
Okay.
assume you probably could, but it does take. So it's a longer period of time of, but it's like a one-time deal. You first, before you do it, you have to get a baseline endoscopy, colonoscopy, and MRI so they can see what you were like before, so they have something to compare to after. They want to make
Hmm.
sure they have everything up to date. And then
Wow, it's not as
you,
fun.
yeah, I know. Mason's like,
See,
I
and
was gonna sign up,
I see
and
an
now
endoscopy, I see a colonoscopy, and I see an MRI. All things I don't
you're like,
like.
yeah, I'm not gonna qualify for that study, so no, don't even ask.
Yes.
And the other thing is you are tapered off all medications.
Hmm.
So that's a rough one, because that's a leap of faith for some people. I mean, even if it's partially working, people really like don't want to come off their
Yeah.
medications,
Because then you might build up,
your
the
antibodies, and it's
antibodies
like,
to
but
it.
and so I guess you probably would have to be pretty severe where things aren't working, and the doctors are saying, no, this is a
It's not
better
gonna work. You have
option.
to try this.
So yeah, so you have to come off all medications, which I
Okay.
thought was interesting. And the actual process involves low dose chemotherapy, an administration of growth factors, and the harvesting of healthy red blood cells, immune cells, and platelets from your hematopoietic system. We just looked that up. I don't
Yeah,
know
we
if
just
it's
searched that.
still
There's gonna be
right.
a little bit of cut right there because we had to search right
Yeah.
after that.
I
What?
don't know
How to
if it's
pronounce
right, but it's something like that.
hematopoietic?
Okay. So yeah, what that sounds good. I think that sounds good.
Hematopoietic.
So because also this patient was part of a clinical trial, she also
Hmm.
received access to a team of nutritionists, palliative care specialists, a social worker, a psychologist, and a massage therapist.
Massage? Whoa.
You're
Okay, never
like,
mind. I'm signing up.
right, that's right there.
Sign me up.
That's how they get at you. They're like, oh,
Yeah, that's how
you
they
could
get
get a
you.
massage too.
Where's that coming though? I mean,
All
it's
right.
not Karen Crohn's, but sure, I'll
Yeah.
take it.
So that's, I mean, so that's kind of interesting. So that process, I mean, I never really thought about how they have to harvest red blood cells and, immune cells and platelets and all that. So it's
Interesting.
a pretty intense system.
A little bit, a little intense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know there's more to it, but again, this is a podcast where we are not experts in any of
No.
this, but there's further links if you guys want to explore it further and see, you'll go into more detail on how a stem cell transplant or injections work. But this is
Mhm.
just to kind of give you an idea
Idea.
because I didn't know either. And I thought, well, if I don't know, maybe you guys out there hear about it. Like we've heard about them,
Yeah, we
but
heard about it, but we don't know how it
yeah,
works.
until the surgeons mentioned it, I was like, oh, okay, so they're doing more with that. So,
That's good.
so the cool thing is, after the transplant, the patient showed immediate signs of improvement, and
Hmm.
she reached full remission by 6 months.
Hmm.
For some reason, I was thinking it was more like a cure. I know it wasn't a cure,
Hmm.
but I was thinking it was more
I
like
mean
that.
that sounds like it because it didn't say they went back on biologics at all. So
Yeah, well, just wait.
yeah, just wait. Hang
That's
on,
what
we're still
happens
coming.
right now. That's what we're about to talk about. That's what I found in because I'm
Yay!
reading along and I'm just like, okay, so I guess I had thought it was a little more like you got this done, you kind of just went to remission for a while and didn't need
Okay.
to take
Well,
anything else until maybe it came back. But the
interesting.
patient that did this was placed on vedolizumab, which is Entyvio, right after transplantation.
Oh.
So what's interesting, right? Because they said that within 6 months
Mhm.
she went into
Yeah, it says
remission.
it sounds like she just took it and she was like, "Let's go, we're all good now." It doesn't sound like the
Yeah.
after she did it,
So
after the treatment.
I guess
But
the question would be like, did the stem cell transplant do that, or did it allow her now to take Entyvio, whereas before Entyvio wouldn't have worked? But like they said, after these, sometimes treatments will suddenly work for people that didn't work before. So maybe the fact that the Entyvio worked after was success,
yeah, so
because
that's still a success
before,
because if you're not able to take anything and nothing's working
then
well,
right, then it's not.
6 months and now you're feeling better, and
Yeah.
that's quite long term.
So either way, I
Well,
was
I
like,
guess not
okay,
greatly long, but still
no, but
better.
still. And so that was part of the clinical trial regimen was
Hmm.
placing the patients onto Entyvio right after.
Hmm.
And the reason is they believe that the Entyvio would help achieve remission because it keeps the immune system in check.
Hmm.
And The patient, so she said she was able to take medications, which it didn't specify. I'm assuming that means Entyvio because that's what she
That's
started
the one she
taking,
started taking.
that were previously off the table. So that was
Okay.
something that before this. So that would
So
be
possibly for me, if I got this, once that Remicade didn't work for me,
like potentially
maybe it
maybe
would
it
work
could.
again. Hmm.
So, I mean, I would think these would be used. I'm not sure how or when these would be used, if they just be used for people who'd gone through everything and something didn't work, or if people had built up immunities. Like, I don't really know how that works. If
Yeah,
it resets
yeah.
it, does it reset the immunities too? I'm not sure. And I'm sure this is very expensive to do a stem cell transplant. And
Oh,
so
yes, sir.
yeah,
The doctors. Don't worry, you're gonna feel better. Your wallet.
no, it's not.
$2 million. Like,
Insurance will be like, huh,
joke's on you. I'm
yeah.
not covering that.
Because I really had thought with the stem cell transplant that was kind of all you needed for a while. And I
Hmm.
didn't realize that right after that they still put you onto a biologic. So you're not necessarily avoiding biologics with the stem
No,
cell
but you're
transplant.
making something possible that wasn't possible.
Exactly. Exactly. So I
Make the
think that's
impossible
right.
possible. That's the new
So I thought that was pretty cool.
slogan.
And I'm sure in the future, maybe, some for some people, who knows, maybe just resetting that immune system would be enough. I don't
Hmm.
know. They're doing studies. That's what they're doing. That's why we have scientists and research and
Yay.
why it is so
To
important.
help fund.
And so the other one we're going to talk about is the GLP2 peptides. This was one of the
Oh.
ones that they hit. You see my boring alert?
Boring. Or why do we need that?
Yeah.
How awful is this?
Okay.
Oh no.
Okay.
We might be done for.
All right. So, sorry, Mason's reading the notes and I have some exciting stuff coming up.
Boring alert, it
I know.
says.
I literally put boring alert in there, so he was warned. Don't yawn. Look
Uh,
excited. So, because the
not that.
GLP2 is going to be, I mean, some of you have heard about the stem cells, some of you have not heard about these, but this was mentioned by the surgeons is another way that they are helping with surgery, helping. And I was kind of like, well, how is that connected? Because if it's healing, what does that have to do with you? Maybe you avoid surgery again because this helps the body heal.
Maybe.
And so that's what's kind of exciting. So I looked into it a little bit and, I'm not going to get too detailed because
TMI.
yeah, it just is you'll have the research for you guys. I'll have the article so you can read and research this. But there are multiple studies being done to see about the healing properties of the GLP2 peptides. And so, what the idea with this one is to actually promote mucosal healing and reduce inflammation in IBD patients. And studies are so far supporting this. They're actually seeing that it's like these are, and sometimes it's funny because I like you hear these and I'm like, oh, this sounds exciting. And then I realize, okay, so it's another treatment.
Hmm.
So I think that might be through infusions, I think. So
Okay.
so again, these aren't
Is the
necessarily
infusions.
avoiding
A treatment.
a treatment.
Hmm.
It's like a new type of treatment. And so
Hmm.
so one of the things is said when I was researching is and especially important for those with short bowel syndrome.
Hmm.
And I was thinking, I'm like, okay, because we were just talking about that surgeries.
Hmm.
You take out, that's how you get short bowel syndrome.
Yes.
You basically have a short bowel tract that
Hmm.
is too short and it's not going, because we did that whole episode, on the digestive
You
system,
should
which you
really
should
check it
watch,
out.
because it tells you how all these things work and it shows you how important it is to have as much of that as you
Link to
can.
it in description.
Yeah, I will.
Yes.
I'll put it up on the screen.
Desk.
This disease, like we are just saying, involves a lot of resections sometimes where you are taking out some intestine and reconnecting it. So that can lead to chronic intestinal failure, known as
Hmm.
IF. And this is where intestines are impaired below the level for necessary growth and your survival.
Hmm.
And so having intestinal failure is something like short bowel syndrome can be a part of. Because this is exciting stuff for people who've had a lot of surgeries and that it may help you still. It's not like just helping those who haven't had it yet. And it's like, no, we can help you guys too. So it sounds like it's good for both people who haven't had surgery and people who've had it. So I think that's kind of cool. All
Bet many
right.
of our viewers have fallen asleep already.
Sorry, guys. Well, I think that, I mean, some might be very excited about this.
Yeah, some might, yeah.
I was, but
If you
I
don't
understand.
understand the scientific stuff, it's like, okay.
Yeah. So we're going to try to help you understand that.
Hmm.
This is fun. Okay.
This
You,
is fun.
I'm
Oh, you have to
telling
tell
you,
them to
this is
encourage that.
fun.
It's not fun if you have to encourage them that it
To
is.
tell them that it is. As if you didn't know, this is
Yeah,
fun.
this is
Okay.
really
This is fun.
fun, guys. This is a blast.
Yeah. So you
True
might be
blast.
asking, I'm sure you were asking yourself this. You probably were. What is a GLP2 peptide?
I was really asking that.
Okay, well, I hope you really do stay awake for this because it's interesting and it really can demonstrate how a lot of these treatments help one large problem but can cause other problems. They interact with each other. So basically, it's an enterotrophic hormone released from enteroendocrine L cells that exert an indirect gut protective effect. And that was what I took from the article, which I'll have posted for you guys. But that's, I mean, we don't really need to know what that is, but I thought it was just that is what it
Yeah,
is.
that's helpful because we all know what endocrine
Enteroendocrine L cells.
enterocrine L
Yeah.
cells are.
It's so you kind of know, I guess, that
Mhm.
it's kind of a hormone
Yeah.
that is a that is leads to gut
So
protection.
kind of like the
Like
flora.
Entivio and stuff is gut
Oh,
specific. Oh,
okay.
and your flora, yeah, like
Yeah.
your the good bacteria in your stomach. So so it is has to do with protecting the
The
gut.
gut. Okay, which is
And
good.
so in studies, GLP2 in vivo, this is what they said, which literally means in vivo is in the living. So in
Okay.
the living body of a plant or an animal. So it is depleted by dipeptidyl peptidase, also known as
DPPIV.
DPP-IV. Okay, so the GLP2 is depleted by DPP-IV. So, in order to extend the half-life, so if you're taking this, right, of the
Mm-hmm.
GLP2, you have to suppress the DPP-IV. So, that in order to make the GLP2 or so
Hmm.
this is an interesting thing because I mean, and again, I don't know enough about this to even really understand this. I promise you that, but I think it's just important so you know what else you may have to be taking because you may have to take one thing because one thing affects another thing. And so currently, I think it's sitagliptin.
Where are we?
Um, it's
Oh,
where that funky word is.
Citagal
Sitagliptin.
Citagaliptin.
Yeah, but that's an FDA approved DPP IV inhibitor,
Hmm.
and that's currently being used for type 2 diabetes.
Yay, okay.
So I think what's also interesting, and I wrote this here to talk about this because there's always seems to be an overlap with other diseases or other
Yeah, there
autoimmune
does. There
conditions.
does.
Like whenever one, it seems like your treatments, like it can be used to treat psoriatic
Hmm.
arthritis,
And then
Stelara can.
Remicade was used. Uh,
It's a tumor necrosis
mhm.
factor, so it was actually,
It was supposed to,
created to help cancer
yeah, to help cancer, but
and
instead,
did not.
Crohn's.
So it's always interesting to me when I see these things. I'm like, oh, so the good news is something has already been developed to help inhibit this for type 2 diabetes. And so it's you can look further into it, guys, because it also will affect the GLP-1, which is something that is also being talked about
Mhm.
a lot with diabetes and sugar regulation in the body.
See?
So I'm not sure exactly how the GLP2 peptide is administered, but it's supposed to help heal
I
the
assume it's an
body.
infusion.
So I don't know how like this kind of thing, if it's going to be like given as just for a healing kind of thing, or if
Uh-huh.
it's a treatment you're always on, or if you take it
Like
and
kind
it
of like
helps heal.
Entyvio, you have to constantly get it.
Right. So I'm not entirely sure on that yet. But I just thought it was worth mentioning. You guys can research that because that's what I like to do because I love
Be a
to I
detective.
do. And so it's like, you'll jump down that rabbit hole, you'll see something, you're like, oh, let's research this. And so with these podcasts, I mean, myself, I will go on and I will research this later and do more work on it. But I like to introduce concepts in a short format, something that you guys can all maybe, if you're interested, you can explore further, but I'm not going to talk about too much because if you aren't interested, I'm not going to bore you with the
No,
details.
gonna
So
leave
you
it.
guys can look more into that. So the outcome for this, it looks like they're still testing not on people yet.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it looks like mice. I know some people are very divided on this too, how they feel this research should be conducted, but leaving that aside, this is just the results of the testing that I looked into. So, in one experiment they've been doing, the GLP2 was able to reduce clinical symptoms of ulcerative colitis in mice.
Hmm.
So
Mice
they
have
will
ulcerative colitis?
no,
No.
that's the
Oh, okay.
difficult part. So,
Okay.
so yeah, so they will like create an inflammatory response in
Okay.
the mice so that they can test. So, tentative results show that GLP2 might block the malignant pro-inflammatory cycle by
Hmm.
inhibiting the NF, looks like a kappa beta to me how it was written because it looks
Yeah.
like, but it's NFKB pathway and the JAK STAT3 inflammatory pathway, which I see the JAK because they do
Yeah,
have
the
JAK
JAK inhibitors.
inhibitors,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
That's
Like
what
they
I
have
was thinking.
Invoke. And so this kind of works along with that, but it's interesting how they all tie in. It
There's so
always
many
seems to
things
tie
that
back,
it's
right?
all connected.
But it inhibits those two pathways. So that will regulate your glucose metabolism and it exerts intestinal protective effects by increasing the dominant strain and regulating,
The flora
which you had
diversity.
guessed
Yes, I
earlier.
did it.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
extremely based beef station.
Yep. Didn't want to say anything
Yeah.
yet, but I was like, wow, you didn't, I know you
No,
did not read this, but
no, I did not read
mhm,
this, but
yeah.
I was right.
So that's basically it for what the surgeons talked about. I mean, they talked about a lot of things, but these were
Yeah,
two things that I
that
thought
really
were,
stuck out.
yeah. And I was like, I want to talk about the stem cell transplants and I want to talk about the GLP2 because I want to learn more about them also. So I'll have the links.
And where you can do the research
Yep.
if you want to
Yeah.
learn more about it.
You guys
And
can do all the searching you want
yeah,
and see how maybe it pertains to you. See what, just see what research projects are out there. If you guys want to become part of a study, research groups are out there and they give you guys, as our doctor says, gift cards. She
gift
always says
cards,
they give you
yes,
gift
gift cards.
cards. That's
You
her
should
big
join.
sell.
They give you a massage. They
Yeah.
give you Starbucks gift card.
Right.
They give you
And
Target
some of
gift
the ones
card.
are like, you get a free MRI. Mason's like, no.
Okay, now I'm
Mhm.
out of it.
Yeah. He's
Huh?
like, no, thank you. But I mean, they do have incentives for you
Hmm.
guys.
I don't know why an MRI would be an incentive to anybody, but I
Yeah.
well, obviously have to get it done and it'd be free, but
Right.
it's just not fun.
No, but that's not like, yeah, for you, for an adult, maybe you're like, that's an incentive.
That's fun.
Uh-huh. So,
Claustrophobia, then there you go.
but things to think about. So maybe you guys can look into it, talk to your doctors to see if there's any research or any studies going on and might be worth mentioning.
Hmm.
So you guys can give us a follow on Instagram at Team
I'm
IB Determined.
determined.
You can watch all of our fun adventures outside of podcasting and
Concat Podcast World.
yeah, we're do all the other cool stuff. And you guys can also participate in the Reggie Project. That's on
Take
Instagram as
pictures
well.
wherever you are, maybe
I
Disneyland
think
or
we'll talk about that next week. I
yeah,
think that's
okay.
gonna be next week's podcast is going to be reintroducing the Reggie Project, and because we have
Revive Reggie.
yes, well, I
Project
feel like
Revive
we
Reggie.
have more listeners
Huh.
now, I think, or more, I don't know, maybe more people willing to participate. And so I really would love to see this grow and help spread the word and help raise awareness together. I think it would
Yeah.
be great.
Okay.
So yeah, just one more tool for the toolbox with all this. So we will go ahead and discuss that next week. And you guys can listen to us on any podcast station like Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio,
There's a lot
and
more linked to Buzzsprout, which will
yes.
also be linked in the description.
Hmm.
And there's also YouTube podcasts. And on top of that, there's YouTube videos, which is like YouTube podcasts, but you can watch us. Even
Yay.
better.
Yeah.
Unless you're driving.
Yeah, then you can just
Yeah, then you
listen.
can just
So
listen.
you have something to
But
listen
if
to.
you want to watch us and listen to us, there's YouTube. And if you are watching us or listening to us on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to be notified every time you post a new video, make sure to hit that bell icon. And please leave a comment. We love getting comments.
But we love to hear
Hmm.
from you guys
Yes, yes.
and let us know if you're part of any clinical trials right now, if you want
Yeah.
to share that. Let us know what
What
you've
you
been
thought
doing.
interesting about the episode, how well it
Yeah.
helped you sleep.
I know. I'm sorry. I hope it was interesting because things I always find
Actually,
interesting,
actually, it
Mason, a
was
lot
like
of times
I
is
thought it
like,
was interesting.
mhm.
It was weird because it was the most interesting, boring.
Yeah,
Like
because
it's
you're
hard to
so,
understand, but it's boring, but
yeah.
it's like, oh, that's cool to
Well,
hear.
here's the good news for patients is, I mean,
Mhm.
I think you don't have to fully understand it, but I do think it is a good idea to try to understand as much as you can.
To learn about yourself, your
Yes.
disease, and how to take care of
So
it.
your doctor, I mean, ideally your doctor is the one who should be able to guide you and have this knowledge, but a lot of times it's very helpful for the patient to also have this knowledge. So I definitely always advocate for Mason to keep learning and finding stuff for him. And so these
Yes.
podcasts are a way for Mason to also learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh, I know. Well, hopefully this was helpful for you
Yeah,
guys.
hopefully it's fun.
And so I think that's it for now.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have Mason get back to work. He's got to get back to his college
Yep.
classes.
Yep.
Since it's the weekend, he's got to get that work done. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks
On the next
on the next episode.
episode. So have a good week. Have a good day.
He's,
Have a
oh,
good
yeah.
episode watching day. If you really watch all of our episodes or
All
listen
right,
to them.
guys, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope you will stick around, tune in, and reach out to us with your own journeys. We are excited to give you an inside view of what it takes to be a caregiver and what it's like to be a patient.
And most of all, we hope you'll maybe be able to apply something you hear on here that might help you in your own life. Sometimes life changes, and it's all about how you handle the journey.